Alright, so I recently acquired a CPC 11 here on a Alt Az mount, and I'm interested in getting this converted over so I can use it on my Equatorial Mount. And so to do that, we'll be doing something called deforking the mount. I've already added on some dovetail rails that you can see up here on the top from Farpoint Astro. So basically what we're going to need to do, take these arms off, and then we can get this mounted up. So the place to start on this is on the arm that doesn't have the handle, but this is where the hand controller would go. So to start off, I'm going to be removing the clutch. Now, as I tested most of this stuff, it seems like most of these are metric, and this one was starting out at like a 2mm for the clutch. Alright, so we have the clutch loosened up from its set screw on the side here. That's about a 2mm wrench, and once that set screw's been loosened, we can just loosen the clutch and keep spinning until everything comes off. And now the scope is free rotating, but what we can do now is lay it on its side so we can get access to the next set of screws. Now we have it sitting on its side, and since I already put the dovetail on the scope, it just sits rather happily on its side. So the next thing we'll be doing is looking at some of the screws that are in the handle area. We'll be taking those off so we get access to the arm to do some of the next steps of demounting. Alright, so now we're working down here in the handle area. There's 4 total screws. There's 2 in the very top and 2 down at the bottom to get out. So these are a little bit tight to get started. So what some of the other online guides have not talked about is that you do need to remove these screws to enable you to open this up. So I got just a few more to go and we'll have this thing open. Okay, so hopefully this is the last couple of screws here. Okay, now we have the last screw out. What we'll eventually need to work on is getting out these 4 bolts that hold this arm to the plate. Once we loosen those, the entire arm can tilt back towards us and release the pressure on the telescope to release the telescope. So to do that, and since we're kind of holding the telescope up here, and we're going to tilt the whole assembly down. So that the telescope rests on its dovetail bar and we have access to those 4 screws. That little bit of loosening should be sufficient for what we need to do. Alright, so I did need to remove the cover of the telescope to let the knob clear. But now, there we go. Okay, so now we have access to the screws on the side. Okay, so that wasn't quite ready to fully release just yet. So I gave these a little bit more of a loosening, gave it a little bit of a tap, and this seems to have popped out. let's see if I can lift this up now. And there we have it. Just needed to push forward. So now we can get a good look there and see we just had the friction points. And basically what was really holding things in place was a setting pin here and the friction of that place. Okay, so now we have the telescope and the Alt Az mount separated. A couple of things that I came to appreciate: some of the top screws and getting these two out. They're much longer compared to the screws in the other spots, so that's why I was having a little bit of a hard time trying to get these out. So there's actually substantial differences in these screws. I think the really long one is on the side that's got the hand controller mounts on the bottom. So I think now that I've kind of had my chance to do this, should I want to go switch between unforked and putting it back in, I think it's probably about a 10-minute process to do that, and I feel that I could go back and forth pretty easily without damaging anything. You just got to make sure you get all the screws tightened back up. And so after all of that, now we have this set up on our Equatorial Mount.